Mr. Fox Revisited. Lady Mary was young, and Lady Mary was fair. She had 2 brothers, and more lovers than she could count. But the most exciting of them all was a Mr. Fox, who she met at her father's country house. He was dashing and debonair, with nice hair and teeth, and a small pointed beard, and Lady Mary cared for him alone. And so she agreed to marry him. Now, Mr. Fox would describe to her his castle and where it was, but strangely, he did not ask her or her brothers to come and see it. And so Lady Mary decided to look for it one day, when her brothers were out and Mr. Fox was away on business. After much searching, she found it in the center of the forest, a fine house with high walls and a moat. Above the gateway, she saw the words, "Be bold, be bold." But the gate was open, and there was no doorman, so she went into the courtyard and up to the front door. Above the front door, she saw the words, "Be bold, but not too bold." So she went in, and though she called, there were no servants in the hall. So she went up the stairs and into the gallery, and finally came to a door painted a bloody red. Above the door was written, "Be bold, but not too bold, lest that your heart's blood should run cold." But Lady Mary was a bold one, and opened the door to the bloody chamber. And what do you think she found? Stacks of corpses of pretty young women, their clothes, some in bridal clothes, all covered with blood. Lady Mary closed the door quickly and ran down the gallery. But looking out the window, she saw Mr. Fox walking across the courtyard, dragging a pretty young woman by her long blonde hair. Lady Mary barely had time to hide behind a wine cask underneath the stairs when Mr. Fox came into the hall with the young woman who had fainted. While Lady Mary watched, Mr. Fox stopped to pull a diamond ring from the young woman's finger. But it wouldn't come off, even though he tugged and cursed and swore. Finally, he pulled out his sword and cut the hand clean off, killing the young woman on the spot. The hand leaped through the air and landed in Lady Mary's lap, where she hid behind the cask. Mr. Fox searched for the missing hand, giving vent to many oaths and blasphemy, but not thinking to look behind the cask. After a time he gave up and dragged the corpse upstairs. As soon as Lady Mary heard the door of the bloody chamber close behind him, she up and ran and didn't stop until she ran all the way home. But she held on to the hand, with the diamond ring still on its finger, hiding it in her dress. The next morning, Mr. Fox had breakfast with Lady Mary, but with no brothers or servants in attendance. If he was surprised, he kept it to himself. A private breakfast suited him fine, but he couldn't help noticing Lady Mary looked very pale, and he asked her if she was ill. "No, but I had a bad night's rest. I had a horrible dream." "The best cure for a bad dream is to tell it to another." "Very well, Mr. Fox. I dreamed I went to find your castle, and after a long search, I found it in the middle of the woods, a fine house with high walls and a moat, and above the gateway I saw the words, 'Be bold, be bold.' But it is not so, nor was it so," Mr. Fox said. "And then I dreamed I came to the front door, and above the door I saw the words, be bold, but not too bold. But it is not so, nor was it so, Mr. Fox said. And then I dreamed I went inside, and though I called, there were no servants in the hall. So I went up the stairs and into the gallery, and finally came to a door painted a bloody red, and above the door was written, be bold, but not too bold, lest that your heart's blood should run cold. But it is not so, nor was it so, Mr. Fox said. And then I dreamed I opened the door, and what do you think I found? Stacks of corpses of pretty young women, their clothes, some in bridal clothes, all covered with blood. But it is not so, nor was it so, and God forbid it would be so, Mr. Fox said. And then I dreamed I ran down the gallery, and looking out the window, saw you dragging a beautiful young lady by her hair, and then I dreamed I hid behind a wine cask under the stairs. But it is not so, nor was it so, and God forbid it would be so, Mr. Fox said. And then I dreamed I saw you drag the young lady into the hall, and you tried to pull her diamond ring off her finger, and when it wouldn't come off, you out with your sword and slashed her hand clean off. But it is not so, nor was it so, and God forbid it would be so, Mr. Fox said, getting to his feet. But it is so, and it was so. Here's hand and ring I have to show, said Lady Mary, pulling the severed hand and ring from her dress and thrusting it in Mr. Fox's face. Mr. Fox was now breathing heavily. Finally he said, what are you going to do now? And Lady Mary smiled, a Mona Lisa smile, and answered, from now on, I'll help you. That was my take on the traditional English folktale recorded by Joseph Jacobs. But what follows actually happened when my wife and I were visiting my parents at my adopted hometown of St. Catharines, Ontario, back around 1991 or 92. We had gone to the Port Dalhousie area so I could take a picture of the CN Tower in Toronto, which was clearly visible across Lake Ontario. When I got back to the car, my mom was gushing about a little pink house which we had parked in front of. Oh, I wish you could move back here. You and your wife could live in that cute little pink house. I really wasn't paying any attention and muttered, yeah, Ma, it's a pink house, and promptly forgot about the incident. At that time, police in the Niagara were looking for a serial killer who had murdered 2 girls, Leslie Mahaffy and Kristen French, but they had no clues. Naturally, everyone was concerned and hoping for an arrest, which didn't come until February 1993. On that day, my mom called me in Regina to tell me the news and blurted, "It was the pink house! It was the pink house!" I had no idea what she was talking about until she reminded me of the incident with the picture in Port Dalhousie and how she wanted us to move back and live in the cute little pink house. So who had been living in the pink house? Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo. For those who are not familiar with the names, Homolka and Bernardo were sometimes referred to as the Ken and Barbie killers, as they were both very attractive people. I've left links to articles about them in the description. Bernardo was convicted of murdering Leslie and Kristen, while Homolka pled guilty to manslaughter in the same deaths. The pair were also responsible for the death of Homolka's sister Tammy as part of a failed rape attempt. Karla testified for the Crown in exchange for a 12-year sentence, served her time, and is now a free woman. Bernardo is still behind bars and should never, ever, ever be released. As a storyteller, I've linked these two stories as they both show that evil can be attractive and murder show a pretty face. The moral of the story? Never judge a book by its cover. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, but let us never forget the victims and their families, for whom this is more than a story. R.I.P. Leslie Mahaffy, Kristen French, and Tammy Homolka. May time bring peace and healing to those who loved you.